I guess it all started with the little things. You know, the kind of behavior that makes you raise an eyebrow but not quite enough to trigger alarm bells. At first, I thought it was just the stress of work or her trying to find her footing in her new job. My wife, Jenna, had recently taken a position at a marketing firm and she was all in. Late nights, weekend work. She was ambitious, and I admired that about her. But as time went on, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Jenna had become distant. Conversations flowed less freely, and the laughter that once filled our home was replaced with awkward silences. I chalked it up to her workload. Who doesn't get a little caught up in their career? I tried to be supportive, making her favorite dinners and asking about her day. Yet, her replies felt rehearsed, like she was giving me just enough to keep me at bay. Then came the phone. I noticed she was guarding it like it was the crown jewels. Always face down, always out of reach, and on more than one occasion, she'd jump out of the shower to answer. A call, I get it right. She could be talking to a work colleague or maybe just someone she was trying to impress, but the paranoia started creeping in. I told myself I was being ridiculous, just a paranoid husband, but those late nights and her newfound secrecy gnawed at me. One Friday night, after a long week of trying to give her space, I decided to surprise Jenna with a date night. I planned it all out. I'd pick her up from work, take her to that Italian place she loved, and then maybe catch a movie. So I arrived at her office, full of excitement, ready to see her face light up. But when I got there, Jenna wasn't alone. That's when I saw him. A guy, tall, fit, with dark hair, leaning casually against the wall while waiting for her. I told myself he was just a coworker. That was a reasonable assumption, right? But there was something in the way they were talking, the way she smiled at him. It didn't sit well with me, but I brushed it off, convincing myself that maybe I was just overthinking things. I waited for a few minutes, but she didn't seem to notice my presence, and when she finally did, it was as if the air was sucked out of the room. She kissed me sweetly, but her eyes darted back to him. I felt sick. "Ready to go?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She hesitated for a split second, glancing at him with an expression I couldn't place. It was then I noticed something on her wrist, a bracelet I'd never seen before. She claimed it was a gift from a coworker for her promotion. I wanted to believe her, but the pit in my stomach deepened. When we got home, I confronted her about the guy. I tried to play it cool at first, but every time I thought about that smile she gave him, the anger crept in. "Who was he, Jenna? You seemed pretty cozy." I expected her to relax, maybe laugh it off, but instead her demeanor shifted. "You're imagining things, Luke. He's just a colleague. You're being paranoid." My heart sank. I wanted to scream, to shake her and demand the truth, but I held back. Instead, I tried to gather my thoughts, but my mind was racing. I started wondering if I was losing my grip on reality. Maybe I was imagining the whole thing. Over the next few weeks, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was seriously wrong. I tried to be normal, but every time she got a text or left the room, my mind spiraled. I began to keep an eye on her phone, looking for any sign of infidelity. Was I being obsessive? Perhaps. But then I found it. One evening, she left her phone unattended while she showered. I hesitated, my pulse racing. I knew I shouldn't, but curiosity got the best of me. I picked up her phone, and there it was, messages from him, flirty conversations that made my stomach turn. I had the receipts, and it felt like my world was crashing down around me. The betrayal felt like a punch to the gut. I felt the heat of anger rise within me, mixed with disbelief. She claimed I imagined our engagement, our love, our life together, but I had the proof to show I wasn't crazy. I was determined to confront her, but I knew this was going to be a battle, and I wasn't sure how it would end. Was I ready for what came next? The moment I set down her phone, I felt a mix of nausea and rage coursing through me. I had seen enough. My heart raced as I tried to process the betrayal. Jenna's words rang in my ears. "You're imagining things." No, I wasn't imagining anything. I had tangible proof that her commitment to our marriage was nothing more than a facade. For the next couple of days, I walked around in a haze. I couldn't look at her the same way. Each time she smiled at me, I felt nauseous. I could see her in the living room, laughing at something on TV, and all I could think about was the fact that she was texting someone else. I wanted to confront her immediately, but I also knew that I needed to plan this out. This wasn't just a simple chat. This was a confrontation that could change everything. So I decided to gather my thoughts and evidence. I collected screenshots of their conversations, where she flirted with him, talked about going out after work, and even mentioned how she wished she could just be with him instead of dealing with boring old Luke. Each message felt like a dagger to my heart. I was hurt, enraged, and confused. How could she do this to me? I finally chose a day to confront her. It was a Saturday, and I knew she would be home all day. I prepared myself, rehearsing what I wanted to say. My stomach twisted into knots as I waited for her to come downstairs. When she finally did, I decided to keep my cool until I couldn't anymore. "Hey, I need to talk to you about something," I started. She looked up from her phone, her expression shifting from relaxed to wary. I could see the gears turning in her head. Did she know what I was about to say? "Is it about dinner? I was thinking of ordering from that new Thai place," she replied, trying to change the subject, clearly sensing the gravity of my tone. "No, it's not about dinner. It's about you, me, and him." I pulled out my phone, holding it tightly in my hand. The air grew thick with tension, and I could see her face draining of color. "Luke, what are you talking about?" She tried to play it off, but I could see the crack in her armor. I stepped forward and showed her the messages. "You mean this guy, the one you've been texting? The one who apparently makes you want to just be with him instead of boring old Luke?" My voice trembled between anger and betrayal. Her reaction was immediate, her eyes widened, and she took a step back, shaking her head. "You're taking this out of context. It's not what you think." So typical. She had always been good at twisting narratives, but this time I wasn't going to let her manipulate me. "Not what I think. Jenna, you're flirting with him, you're talking about meeting up, I have the receipts." She floundered, looking for a way out. "Those messages are just harmless, you're reading too much into it, you know how work can be. It's just office banter." "Office banter," I exclaimed. "This isn't just harmless chit-chat, you're betraying me, you've been lying to my face." The tears began to flow, and for a moment I felt a pang of sympathy. But that sympathy quickly turned to anger as I remembered the image of her with that guy, laughing and enjoying her life without me. "You don't get to play the victim here," I snapped. "You made your choice." She tried to reason with me, claiming it was just a phase, that she was overwhelmed by work and that they only talked about work. But I knew better. I had seen the way she looked at him. It was a look she hadn't given me in ages. Her excuses were as flimsy as the lies she had spun. The confrontation continued, and each word that came out of her mouth felt like more salt in the wound. She claimed that I had pushed her away, that I was too focused on my own career, and that my demands for attention were suffocating her. "You never listened to me. I feel alone in this marriage," she shouted. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I felt like I was in a bad dream. How could she turn this around on me after everything? "I've been here, Jenna. I've supported you. I've tried to be everything for you." Finally, I had to take a breath or I'd lose my mind. I leaned back against the wall, staring at her. "What do you want from me? Do you want to stay married, or do you want to run off with him?" She hesitated, and that moment of uncertainty spoke volumes. I could see the gears turning in her mind. She didn't want to admit it, but she was contemplating her next move. Her emotions were a mix of panic and frustration, and I knew this was a tipping point. I thought back to the good times, the laughter, the love, the promises. Had it all been a lie? "Luke, I need time to think," she finally said, her voice trembling. "Time to think." I felt like I was losing my grip on reality. "You've had enough time, Jenna. It's time for you to decide if you want this marriage or if you want to throw it all away for a guy who clearly doesn't care about you like I do." I could see the realization of her choices dawning on her. The facade was crumbling, and what lay beneath was a mix of guilt and anger. In that moment, I realized that I was ready to take control of my life, and I wouldn't be a pawn in her game any longer. The confrontation wasn't over yet, and it was clear we both had a long way to go. But I wasn't about to let her walk away unscathed. I would fight for my dignity, my self-respect, and whatever shred of love remained in this marriage. It was time to decide what I was going to do next. The atmosphere in the room was thick with tension after my confrontation with Jenna. I felt like I was standing on the precipice of a cliff, teetering between anger and despair. Watching her squirm, trying to find a way to manipulate the situation back into her favor, ignited a fire within me that I hadn't known existed. I was done being the passive partner in our relationship, done with her lies, and certainly done with her dismissive attitude toward my feelings. "Let's take a break," she suggested weakly, her eyes darting around the room as if searching for an escape route. "Maybe we can do some thinking apart and come back to this with clearer heads. Take a break." I echoed incredulously. "Is that what you want, to run off and see if you can have your cake and eat it too?" I was infuriated. The thought of her running back to that guy made me sick. I had given her everything, my heart, my trust, my loyalty, and now she was considering throwing it all away. "Luke, please," she said, her voice softening. "I need space. I can't think with you right here." Space. It was a word that echoed through my mind like the haunting refrain of a broken song. Jenna had spent too much time creating distance between us, and now she wanted more. I wasn't going to give her that satisfaction. If she thought she could waltz away from this without facing the consequences, she was sorely mistaken. "No," I said firmly. "You don't get to dictate the terms anymore. You've broken my trust, and I'm not willing to just sit back while you figure out the next phase of your life without considering the damage you've done." Her face fell, and for the first time I saw a flicker of vulnerability. "I'm not trying to hurt you, Luke. I made a mistake. This isn't easy for me either." "Not easy for you," I scoffed. "What do you think it's like for me? I caught my wife in a web of lies, flirting with someone else while I was right here, feeling like a ghost in my own home. You need to understand how this feels." I saw her shoulders slump, the fight in her momentarily extinguished. I didn't mean for things to escalate like this. I felt lonely and I thought I could handle it. I didn't want to hurt you." "Then why didn't you come to me?" The question hung in the air like a specter. "Why didn't you talk to me about how you were feeling instead of looking for attention elsewhere?" "I thought it was harmless at first," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't mean to fall for him, but he was there, Luke. He made me feel seen when I felt invisible at home." Her words stung more than I cared to admit. I had been so focused on my job, trying to give her the life I thought she wanted, that I hadn't realized I was neglecting our relationship, but that didn't excuse her infidelity. "I get that you felt neglected," I replied, my voice calmer now, "but you should have come to me first. You didn't even give us a chance to fix this. You just ran off to someone else." "I know," she said, tears streaming down her face. "But I didn't think it would go this far. I'm so sorry, Luke. I never meant for it to happen." The apology felt insincere, almost like a reflex rather than genuine remorse. I wanted to scream, to tell her that saying sorry didn't fix this, but I also knew that I needed to take a step back and assess the situation. Maybe I could give her one last chance to prove that she really wanted to make this work. "So, what now?" I asked, my voice steadier. "Are you going to end things with him?" She hesitated, her eyes betraying her decision. "I'll talk to him. I'll break it off, I promise. I just need some time to figure out how to do it without making things worse." There it was again, time. Did she think this was going to magically fix everything? "You realize that I'm going to need more than that. I need proof that you're committed to this marriage. I can't just trust you blindly anymore." "I understand," she nodded, wiping her cheeks. "I promise I'll do whatever it takes to make this right." I wanted to believe her. I truly did. And yet, doubt lingered like an unwelcome guest in the back of my mind. The first step was crucial, and I needed to see her take action. "How about this? You tell him that it's over, and then we can sit down together to discuss what we need to work on as a couple." "Okay," she said, nodding slowly. "I can do that." I watched as she took a deep breath, and for the first time I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, we could salvage our marriage. But I also knew that I'd be keeping a close eye on her actions. Words were easy to say, but actions spoke louder than any confession she could muster. As Jenna left the room to gather herself, I felt a mix of relief and apprehension. I couldn't shake the feeling that this was merely the beginning of a long and painful journey, but I was ready to face it. I owed it to myself to fight for my dignity and my heart. That night, as I lay in bed, I wrestled with my emotions. I wanted to trust her again, to believe in the good times we had shared. But could I really go back to the way things were? I drifted into a restless sleep, knowing that this was only the start of the reckoning. The road ahead would be bumpy, filled with uncertainty and doubt, but I was determined to navigate it on my terms. The next day would be pivotal. I wouldn't let Jenna's betrayal dictate my future, and I was ready to reclaim control, whatever that looked like. The following morning, I woke up with a mix of anxiety and determination swirling in my chest. The sun filtered through the blinds, casting a warm glow in our bedroom, but it felt like the light had trouble breaking through the haze of doubt that had settled in my mind. I glanced over at Jenna, still asleep beside me. She looked peaceful, but I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal that lingered in the room. The plan was simple. I needed to confront Jenna about her affair again, this time focusing on her intentions to end things with the other guy. I had given her a chance to prove her commitment, but I was still skeptical. My heart was heavy with the knowledge that trust, once broken, was difficult to mend. When she finally stirred, her sleepy smile was a contrast to the turmoil inside me. "Good morning," she said softly, brushing her hair back from her face. "I hope we can talk more today." "Yeah, we need to," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. "I want to know how things went with him." Her expression shifted slightly, and I could see the tension return to her features as she processed my words. "I haven't spoken to him yet. I was planning to do it later today. I needed a moment to gather my thoughts first." Gather her thoughts. The phrase kept echoing in my mind, and I felt a flash of irritation. "Jenna, we can't just keep putting this off. You made a choice to flirt with him, and now you need to own up to it. I need to know you're serious about this." She nodded, her eyes welling with tears again. "I know, and I'm sorry. I'll do it, I promise. I just didn't want to hurt him more than necessary." "What about hurting me?" I shot back, my frustration bubbling to the surface. "You've already hurt me more than I can express. I deserve to know that you're fully committed to fixing this." Jenna took a deep breath, clearly trying to regain her composure. "You're right, I'll call him today, and I'll do it while you're here. I don't want to hide anything from you anymore." "Good," I replied, my voice firm. "I want to hear what you have to say to him. This isn't just about closure for you, it's about us establishing what our future looks like." As we sat down in the living room, I watched her pick up her phone. The silence felt heavy, and I could sense the anxiety radiating from her. I wanted to reach out and comfort her, but I also felt the weight of betrayal pressing down on me. This was her moment to show me she meant business. With trembling hands, she dialed the number. I could hear the ringing on the other end, and my heart pounded in my chest. Each beep felt like a countdown to the moment of truth. After a few rings, I heard a voice on the line, and Jenna's expression tightened. "Hey, it's me," she began hesitantly. "Can we talk?" I anxiously leaned forward, straining to hear every word. The conversation was tense, with Jenna stumbling over her words. She told him that she didn't think it was right to continue their relationship, that she realized she had made a mistake. I watched her face flicker between guilt and determination as she spoke, and it was clear that she was struggling to find the right words. "Look, I can't do this anymore. I owe it to myself and to my husband to be honest about how I feel. I'm sorry for everything," she said, her voice breaking. I felt a rush of conflicting emotions. Part of me wanted to be proud of her for taking this step, but another part of me ached for the trust we had lost. I could hear the anger and disappointment on the other end of the line as he reacted to her words. "You can't be serious, Jenna. You're throwing everything away for what? A boring life with him. Please don't make this harder than it needs to be," Jenna replied, her voice wavering. "I've already made my choice, and I need you to respect that." "Respect it, after everything we've shared," he shot back. "You can't just walk away from this." I could see the tears streaming down her face as the conversation continued. It was painful to witness. I wanted to reach out to tell her everything would be okay, but I had to let her face the consequences of her choices. I had to let her own this moment, however difficult it was. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Jenna ended the call. She looked defeated, but I could also sense a glimmer of relief. "It's done," she said, her voice still shaky. "I told him I wasn't coming back." "Good," I replied, trying to keep my emotions in check. "Now we have to talk about what happens next for us." She nodded, wiping her tears. "I want to work on this, Luke. I really do. I know I messed up, but I want to try and make things right." The sincerity in her voice made my heart ache, but I couldn't allow myself to be swept away by hope just yet. "It's going to take more than just words, Jenna. We need to rebuild trust, and that's going to require time, patience, and a lot of effort." I'm willing to do whatever it takes, she insisted, her eyes searching mine for understanding. I don't want to lose you. I took a deep breath, allowing myself a moment to process everything. I want to believe you, but I need time. I need to see that you're committed to this, not just saying it because you're scared of losing me. I understand, she said quietly, her gaze dropping to the floor. I can't expect you to just forgive and forget overnight, but I'll show you how serious I am. I promise. The road ahead was still unclear, but I was willing to consider the possibility of moving forward, albeit cautiously. Jenna had taken a step, but it was only the beginning of a long recovery process. I realized now that we both needed to find our way back to each other, but it wouldn't be easy. As I glanced out the window, watching the sun rise higher in the sky, I felt a flicker of hope mixed with uncertainty. Our marriage was bruised, but maybe, just maybe, we could find a way to heal. It would take time and effort, but we had made the first step together. Now it was time to navigate this uncharted territory and decide what our new reality would look like. The following weeks were a whirlwind of emotions, and every day felt like a new challenge. After Jenna finished things with the other guy, I expected some immediate relief, but instead, it was as if the weight of the world had settled even heavier on our shoulders. We were now two people standing in the wreckage of our marriage, trying to figure out how to rebuild what had been so carelessly shattered. Jenna was committed to showing me she wanted to make things work, and I could see her effort. In small ways, she started leaving her phone unlocked, openly texting me throughout the day and even making plans for date nights. But even as she tried to reconnect, I found myself struggling to let my guard down. Trust wouldn't return overnight, and it was hard to shake off the memories of her betrayal. We started attending couples therapy, which felt like a necessary step, but I was apprehensive. Sitting in that small office across from the therapist, it felt like opening a floodgate. I found myself voicing emotions I had kept bottled up for far too long. My feelings of betrayal, anger, and sadness spilled out like a broken dam. Jenna, in return, expressed her regrets and the emptiness she felt during our marriage, which had driven her to seek validation elsewhere. I didn't realize how disconnected we had become, she admitted during one session. I thought I could handle it, but I was just lying to myself. The therapist guided us through a series of exercises designed to help us reconnect, but each time Jenna spoke, I struggled to fully engage. My heart wanted to forgive her, to believe that we could move forward, but my brain kept replaying the betrayal. I recalled the moments when she had chosen her affair over our life together, the laughter and joy we once shared replaced with lies. One day, while Jenna was at work, I found myself scrolling through old photos on my phone, looking back at happier times. I came across pictures from our engagement, where she was beaming with joy, wearing a ring that symbolized a promise of forever. The contrast to our current reality struck me hard. I felt a pang of nostalgia mixed with bitterness. Had it all been a ruse? Were those smiles genuine, or had she already been contemplating her betrayal then? When Jenna returned home that evening, I couldn't hold back my emotions. "Do you even remember how happy we were back then?" I asked, my voice thick with emotion. "Does it even mean anything to you now?" Her face fell, and I could see the pain reflected in her eyes. "Of course, it meant everything to me. I loved you then, and I love you now." "I just lost my way, Luke." "Lost your way?" I echoed, trying to contain my anger. "You didn't just lose your way, you chose to betray me. You chose to be with someone else instead of coming to me." "I know," she cried, her voice rising in frustration. "I was wrong, and I'm trying to make it right, but you have to give me a chance to show you I can be better. You can't just expect me to forget what happened." I shouted, the floodgates of my anger finally opening. "You broke my heart, Jenna. You broke our vows." The intensity of my feelings erupted like a volcano, and for a moment I felt both liberated and trapped. I wanted to yell and scream, to release the pent-up anger that had been simmering for weeks, but after the outburst I felt an overwhelming sense of sadness wash over me. I didn't want to be this angry, bitter person, but I was struggling to see a way through this darkness. Jenna stepped closer, her eyes pleading. "I don't want to lose you, Luke. I will fight for us. I promise I'll do better. Please let me show you." I wanted to believe her, but the pain was still too fresh. "How do we move past this? How do I trust you again?" I think it starts with honesty, she replied softly. I need to be open about everything, and you need to tell me what you need from me. We began having more honest conversations, slowly peeling back the layers of hurt and disappointment. I started expressing my needs, my desire for reassurance, for her to be fully present with me. It was uncomfortable, but it felt necessary. She listened, genuinely trying to meet me halfway, and I began to see glimpses of the woman I had fallen in love with. But then, just when I thought we were making progress, doubts crept back in. One evening, I overheard her on the phone with a friend discussing how hard it was to navigate our relationship. I don't know how to fix this, she said, her voice tinged with uncertainty. It was disheartening to hear. That night, I confronted her. I overheard you talking to your friend. It sounds like you're not even sure about us. She looked stunned, her eyes wide with worry. That's not true. I was just expressing my fears. I'm scared too, Luke. Scared? You should be. You put us in this position. I snapped, feeling the anger resurface. You're the one who cheated. You're the one who made this mess. The argument escalated again, but this time I felt a sense of resolution. I realized that while I couldn't change what had happened, I could choose how I responded. It was time for me to lay down the law. I couldn't continue walking on eggshells in my own home. Here's the deal, I said, my voice steady. I'm willing to work on this. But you need to show me that you are fully committed. No more secrets, no more dishonesty. If you can't do that, then we need to talk about what's next for us. Jenna nodded, her expression earnest. I can do that, I promise. I want to make this work. I want a future with you. The air between us started to shift, a fragile truce forming amidst the storm. While I was still filled with doubts, there was a glimmer of hope. We both had a lot of work ahead of us, but at least we were finally communicating, finally facing the hard truths together. As I lay in bed that night, I felt a mixture of exhaustion and cautious optimism. The road to recovery would be long, filled with ups and downs, but I was determined to try. We were navigating uncharted waters, but I hoped that together we could find our way back to each other, one step at a time. The days turned into weeks, and as we continued our journey together through therapy and open conversations, I began to notice small but significant changes in Jenna. She made an effort to prioritize our time together, planning date nights and taking the initiative to communicate more openly about her feelings. It felt like we were slowly inching toward the connection we once had, but I was still cautious, holding my heart close. One evening, we sat in our cozy living room, the familiar flicker of candles casting a soft glow around us. Jenna had prepared dinner, a meal from one of our favorite restaurants, and the atmosphere felt surprisingly warm. It was a stark contrast to the coldness that had filled our home just weeks before. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice steady. "Sure," I replied, setting down my fork. I could feel the tension in the air, but it was different this time, less about anger and more about vulnerability. "I've been thinking a lot about us, about everything that's happened," she began, her eyes searching mine. "I know I hurt you deeply, and I can't express how sorry I am for that, but I want to move forward and I want to earn your trust again." I took a deep breath, allowing her words to sink in. "Trust is something that takes time, Jenna. I'm willing to work on things, but it's a process." "I understand," she said, nodding. "I've been trying to be more transparent with you, to show you that I'm dedicated to rebuilding what we had. I've even started to unpack some of my own insecurities that led me to stray in the first place." That revelation caught me off guard. "What do you mean?" "I think I was looking for validation because I felt like I wasn't good enough. You were so focused on your career, and while I was proud of you, I began to feel invisible. Instead of talking to you about it, I took the easy way out." She paused, tears forming in her eyes. "I don't want to be that person anymore." "Then let's work on it together," I suggested, my heart softening. "I want to help you through this, but it requires both of us to be all in." "I'm all in," she said, her voice filled with conviction. "I want to go to couples therapy more frequently. I want to create a plan for us to check in on each other's feelings, something we can do weekly." That idea resonated with me. "I like that. We could set aside time every Sunday to just talk, no distractions. We can share how we're feeling, any worries we have, and what we need from one another." "Exactly," she said, a small smile breaking through the tension. "And I'll make sure to be more present and engaged, even if it means putting my phone down or setting boundaries with my work. I want to show you I value our time together." The conversation shifted to specifics, and I started to feel a sense of hope bubbling up inside me. Little by little, we were setting the foundation to rebuild our relationship. It wouldn't be easy, and there would be days when doubts crept back in, but we were both committed to working on it. Over the next few months, we continued to face challenges. There were moments when insecurities surfaced, and I found myself wondering if Jenna had truly changed or if it was just a temporary fix. But as we kept our weekly check-ins, I realized that she was genuinely trying. She would open up about her feelings, and I would share my fears of being betrayed again. One day, she surprised me with a heartfelt letter. I opened it nervously, but as I read her words, I felt my heart swell. "Luke, I know I've made mistakes, but I want to be your partner, your teammate. I promise to communicate, to be honest, and to never take our relationship for granted again." I looked up from the letter, feeling tears prick at my eyes. I had never doubted that we had something special, but the betrayal had cast a shadow over it. Still, her commitment to change was palpable, and I found myself wanting to believe in her fully. As we celebrated our first anniversary since the affair, we took a trip to the beach, just the two of us. It felt like a fresh start, a chance to create new memories and redefine our relationship. We walked hand in hand along the shore, the waves crashing rhythmically at our feet. "Look at us," I said, glancing over at her. "I can hardly believe how far we've come in such a short time." "I know," she replied, her smile radiant. "I'm so grateful for your willingness to work through this together. I love you so much, Luke." "I love you too," I said, feeling the warmth of her hand in mine. "And I'm proud of us for facing our problems head on. It hasn't been easy, but it's worth it." In that moment, I understood that healing was not a straight path. It was filled with twists and turns. But as long as we both remained committed to each other, we could navigate whatever lay ahead. I looked out at the vast ocean, realizing that our future was like that endless horizon, uncertain but full of possibilities. We returned home with a renewed sense of hope and commitment. While the road ahead would undoubtedly be rocky at times, I felt ready to face it. We were determined to rebuild our love on trust and honesty, and with that, I believed we could create something even more beautiful than what we had before. And as I lay in bed that night, my heart finally felt lighter. I was ready to embrace our new beginning, whatever it might bring. Together, we would write our next chapter, hand in hand.